Irene Avonelle Johnson Hawke's oral history continued. You last left off when you were 13 years old and in junior high school. Then something happened that changed your life. Your mother passed away. When did she pass away?
August 29th, 1937.
And how old was she when she passed away?
She was 45. She would have been 45 the next week.
And you were how old?
I was 13.
Okay. Now, how long, do you know why she died?
Either tuberculosis or cancer. I don't know which. I'd have to look at her death certificate and see what the immediate cause was.
How long before she died did you know she was very sick?
Probably 3 or 4 months at the beginning of the summer.
And how did you know that? Did you have a talk with her?
She had to go lie down and stay prone for so many hours during the day, and she couldn't eat. She was having difficulty keeping herself fed.
Was she coughing a lot? Do you remember?
I really don't remember that.
At what point did you realize that she was going to pass away?
Well, it sounds pretty dumb, but probably the week or two before she died.
Yeah. I guess the real thing is nobody talked to you about it.
No.
That's what's interesting.
They just moved me around from place to place.
Before she passed away, well, would you stay outside your house?
Yeah. When she went to the hospital 2 weeks before she passed away.
But you said at the beginning of summer she started to not be well, and during that period of time, did you ever leave the home and go stay elsewhere? Or?
It might have been longer than that, but that's what I remember.
Was the 2 weeks? Okay. So that's when she went to the hospital?
Yes.
Okay. Before she died. And then, so where did you go at that point?
I went first to to her brother's house, my Uncle Ralph's home in Tucson. Spent a couple of nights, and spent a couple of nights in Virginia Flood's home. I don't remember other places I went.
But you were never left home alone?
No, I was never left alone.
Okay. And so this was August, so it would have been summer vacation for you. You wouldn't have been going to school. Okay. But nobody sat you down and said, this is what's happening, and this is what's going to happen, and or counseled you, or in no way that...
I don't recall anybody talking to me about it.
At some point, at what point did it dawn on you? Do you remember that my mother's going to die? Was that, at some point, did that dawn on you? Do you remember?
I don't remember much of anything precise or right in your face type of thing. My uncle was a very quiet man, didn't communicate too well.
Which uncle was this?
The one I stayed with for a couple of nights, my mother's brother, Ralph.
Okay.
You're going to laugh, but the thing I remember about staying with Virginia and her mother was that we made fudge.
No? Okay. Now, who was Virginia Flood? How was she related to you?
Virginia's father was my Uncle Maynard's younger brother, Leslie Flood.
Okay.
And he and his wife had divorced, and her brother, and she lived with her mother alone.
So she was related through your Uncle Maynard, who was your uncle through marriage to your mother's sister?
To my father's sister.
Your father's sister, Anna Flood.
Yeah.
Anna Johnson Flood.
Edith Cordell was her name, her mother's name. She had married several times.
So, let's go to the couple of days when your mother passed away. What happened? Did somebody take you to the hospital, or what happened?
The night she died, I was taken to St. Mary's Hospital and sat on a sofa I guess it was a waiting room. It wasn't her room. And I have to assume, and I don't remember, but I knew that she was very bad, very ill, and that she probably wouldn't live. And I can remember being taken into her room at some point, and she and I never had a conversation at that point. She seemed to be either in a coma or semi-coma at that point. And she died later that night.
But again, this was just a feeling you were getting. Nobody was telling you.
No,
anything.
that I remember, no.
Okay.
Now, whether I did have someone telling me and I've blanked it out, I don't know.
Okay. And that night, whom were you staying with? Do you remember?
What?
That night that she passed away, whom were you staying with? Do you remember?
Virginia and her mother.
Okay. And then you found out the next morning, you were told?
The next day, my Aunt Henrietta told me.
Okay.
My mother's sister.
Sister, right.
Who did not live in Tucson, but had come.
Okay. She lived in El Paso at the time, right?
I assume that's where she lived, yeah.
Okay. She told you. I mean, this was 85 years ago, so, you know, do you recall, did you cry, did you break down, do you recall your emotions, or have you blanked it out?
I don't recall. I don't recall.
Okay.
Isn't that funny?
No, I mean, I guess if either one of us was a psychologist, we could explain it, but neither one of us is, so. But prior to this, there had been no discussion with you about your living arrangements, where you were going to go, how were you going to, anything, there had been no discussion with you, is that correct?
No one talked to me about, where would you like to go, Avonelle? We'd like you to go here, is that all right? Or, no conversation about it, that I recall.
Mm-hmm. And as far as you know, your mother owned the home that you've been living in?
As far as I knew.
On South Park?
I don't know.
So, there was a funeral, I imagine, that you attended?
What?
There was a funeral, I imagine, that
Oh,
you attended?
Parker Grimshaw Funeral Home had the services. I remember them quite vividly, a scene being there. I remember my Aunt Henrietta being there. That's about it.
But your Aunt Henrietta asked you to do something.
You know, yes, she asked me to kiss my mother, and it was hard for me. I remember that.
Yeah. And I believe your mother just had one debt she owed when she died. Is that correct? A debt? She owed somebody some money.
As far as I was aware, she owed the little corner Mexican grocery store, Guzman's, something like $80. You could charge your groceries in those days.
Right.
And she may have had more, I don't know, but that's what I always was told.
So then, after the funeral, just take us through those weeks, what happened after that?
My memory puts me on the train with my Aunt Henrietta, and I was taken to El Paso, Texas. And that's where I had gone every summer with my mother to visit my grandparents. And so they took me there to stay for a week. I don't remember one single thing from that week. What I did, who I saw, I don't remember anything from that. And then the next thing I remember is after about a week, I was brought back to Tucson, I assume by my Aunt Henrietta, but I don't remember, and taken right to my aunt and uncle's home, Maynard and Anna Flood, which was on what we always called the other side of town, 6th Street. And
what was the address, do you remember?
924 East 6th Street. Immediately north, almost exactly north, 1 block from your father, whom I did not know
On 7th Street.
at that time. They lived at 934 East 7th Street, and I was moved to 924 East 6th Street.
Amazing. Just literally, you could throw a rock almost at their house.
And I didn't know him. Peggy Bilby and her family lived across the street. She became a good lifelong friend. Mansfield Junior High, we called them, was east of my aunt and uncle about 2 to 3 blocks, which was the school that I started going to that week. School started that week. School usually started the day after Labor Day, Monday.
Right.
And that's...
So what grade were you in?
I was in the 9th grade.
9th grade.
Which was the last year of junior high school.
Okay. At the age of 13,
Uh,
you were in 9th grade. So you were ahead of your age. You were young for your
yes.
grade. Did you feel like you were young for your grade? Did you feel uncomfortable?
Never occurred to me.
Okay.
Never occurred.
But you ended up with the floods. Now, prior to your mother passing, your family relationships have mostly been with your mother's side of the family. Is that true?
Correct.
And now here you are with the Floods, right? Who Anna Flood is your mother's.
She was Anna Johnson.
Right, your father's
My father's sister.
younger sister or older sister?
I think she was. She was older than my father. Oh yes.
She was okay. So, having really spent most of your life interacting with your mother's side of your family, now all of a sudden you're living with somebody from your father's side of your family. And had there been any discussion with you after your mother's death about this? Any of the plans or anything like this?
No, nothing. They were like strangers to me. I didn't know them.
So you had spent little, if any, time with them before this?
And they had a 6-year-old son that was born menopause child, because I don't know how old my aunt and uncle were at that time, but I'm assuming they were in their late 40s, early 50s. And my aunt had just had him about 6 years before. Bobby.
They had how many kids?
Hmm?
They had how many kids?
Well, they had Bobby, who was 6, and then they had 2 married sons, Clyde, who was a surgeon, and Everett, who was a businessman in Washington, D.C.
So they were already out of the house.
Oh, yeah.
So it was just
In fact, Bobby was an uncle already. His oldest brother already had a child.
Okay. And in terms of what happened to your mother's house,
Oh,
all that sort of, you have no idea, nobody ever explained
none
anything to you?
whatsoever.
Nobody ever gave you an accounting?
None whatsoever. I think I was given her watch, a brooch my father had given her, and a little powder container, little dusting powder container, and that was what I had.
Do you recall your emotions when you started living at the Floods?
No.
Okay, just
It was like I was encased in foam. I just did what they told me to do each day.
Describe your Uncle Maynard and your Aunt Anna.
They were both, well, my aunt was a very big blonde woman, all English. My uncle was an Irishman and very rugged looking, very dark. He was a railroad engineer, so he was in the sun all the time. He was a very jolly, pleasant, smiling man. My aunt was a very serious, sober, rather removed, aloof kind of woman.
And what did your uncle call you?
Well, he started calling me Boots at some point.
Boots.
Boots.
And where do you think that came from?
A comic strip of the day. There was Boots and her buddies, and she was a real dark-haired young woman who always wore boots.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah just called you Avonelle?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
When she talked to me, she didn't talk very much.
Mm-hmm. And you had your own room in the house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did they have a piano in the house?
Oh my, yes. Bobby was taking piano lessons already.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very talented little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
So you were able to share the piano with him?
And we were both taking from the same piano teacher at that time.
Really? Who was that?
Mrs. Lomax.
Oh, okay. So were there any conflicts in terms of sharing the piano?
No, and that's the strange part that I haven't figured out in all these years. I knew who Bobby was, and it seemed that I knew that Bobby Flood was my cousin, because we were in the same piano recitals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you'd seen him.
So I'd seen him, and I'm sure my aunt must have been at those recitals, but I don't remember her. And so that's a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
There are a lot of coincidences that I look back on, and that I just kind of floated like a cloud at that time through things.
Well, it was a small town too.
Yeah.
You knew pretty much everybody, or at least saw everybody.
Yeah.
At some point. Yeah. But you don't remember any conflicts over piano time?
No.
It's my turn with the piano. Right?
Never.
There must have been some amazing piano music in that house over the years.
Well,
Two very talented pianists.
they had a Gull Branson baby grand piano. And I don't even remember playing on it, but I know I did.
So you're in 9th grade, your last year of junior high school. You're 13 years old. Now, at this time, you're still prepubescent?
I'm still what?
Prepubescent?
Yeah.
Okay. And
I was a little girl.
At what point in your life did that change?
Probably, I would have to guess 5 or 6 months later.
And had anybody ever had a
Nobody
conversation
ever
with you about
talked.
this?
No, and I don't think that was unusual. And we girls didn't talk about it. I guess we had other things that were more important to us. I don't know.
And there was no sex education in school?
No. All my aunt said at the time that it occurred was, "Here, take this, and don't talk about this to anyone."
She basically gave you a kit.
Yeah, right. She had it already.
Okay. And said, don't talk about it.
No, and just don't talk about this to anyone.
Now, did you take PE in school?
Yes,
Would you change
nothing was ever
clothes?
taught about it in the
Would you
PE.
change clothes in the locker room in front of other girls and everything?
Well, I was always very modest, and I was very careful what I did, that I didn't reveal myself. I was, I don't know why I was. I guess I was raised that way. I don't know.
But you say it was pretty much the norm, though. I mean, nobody talked about it in front of you.
No, nobody talked about it. We just put our gym clothes on and went outside and played whatever we were supposed to play.
And moving forward, the birds and the bees conversation that everybody talks about with kids, anybody ever have that with you?
Yes, vaguely. My precious uncle, that was such a sweet man. My uncle and I were alone one day at the house on First Avenue.
How old are you at this point?
I was probably 16. I was already dating Dad, and Anna was at a meeting or something. She wasn't there, so my uncle said very, very hesitantly but kindly, "Hey, Boots, has your aunt ever talked to you about boys and girls and what you're not supposed to do, what you can do?" And I don't know exactly how he worded it, but I said no, which she hadn't. And he said, "Well, I just want to tell you, don't let a boy put his hands below your neck. And don't let him do more than just kiss you. And what was the other thing he told me? Oh, don't let a boy see your body underneath your clothes. He said, you don't do that until you're married. And I said, okay, Uncle Maynard.
That's pretty short, but pretty comprehensive.
Pretty comprehensive. Pretty good advice.
Okay. So you're at Mansfeld,
Well,
ninth grade.
well, yeah, going back from that advice.
Right.
I went to Mansfield going to ninth grade and making new friends. Made friends right away. Started playing the piano for the music chorus. Started being attracted to boys. Made my very best friend for the rest of my life.
Who was that?
Sarah Moles. And
Tell us about Sarah.
what?
Tell us about Sarah.
Sarah was probably a year to a year and a half older than I, but we were in the same grade, and we were in chorus together. We just took to each other and liked each other. And she lived on 2nd Street. I lived on 6th Street. And we just stayed close friends for the rest of our lives.
When was the last time you saw Sarah?
Well, Sarah was a woman of great faith in her later life, as I hope I am. I think I am. And we didn't see each other for many years. Her life went one way with her husband, and mine went another. But we always had periodic contacts. And she had 3 children. She married once and was a widow 4 months later. Her husband was killed in an airplane crash. He was not a Tucson boy. It was during the war. I was her maid of honor at her first wedding. Then she remarried a lifelong friend that your dad and I knew all our lives. And he came home from combat in World War II and went back to school, and they had the 3 children. And we renewed our friendship, I forget just when in our lives. And
But when was the last time you saw her? How old was she?
she was in her, probably 90, she was 90, and she was living in St. George, Utah, the same town as her son, and in an adult living center. And when she got ready to be moved from Tucson to St. George, I made a casual remark, never dreaming what it was going to end up doing. And I said in front of my son, Frank, oh gee, my dearest friend in all the world is moving away from Tucson. I probably won't see her again until we meet again in heaven. And Frank immediately picked up on it, and he said, oh yes, you will. He said, we're gonna take you up there next.
So we took a trip to St. George.
Uh-huh.
That was fun. Well, so at Mansfeld, you're playing the piano. You're playing for the various shows and things being put together. Interested in boy. Who's the first boy you were interested in? Do you remember?
Not really seriously interested, but I thought Teddy was cute, and that's the boy that Sarah married later.
Okay.
Teddy Keel. I thought he was a cute boy. Larry Wilson was had a beautiful voice in 9th grade. It was amazing. Beautiful baritone voice. Larry, I had my first, what you would consider, date with Larry.
In junior high school.
Larry Wilson. It was to the graduation prom. And I can even remember the long pink dress that my aunt, I don't remember trying it out or shopping for it, but that's what I had.
Just appeared.
It just appeared. And I really didn't have a real crush on Larry. He just was a nice boy, and he asked me to the prom.
How about, were other boys interested in you, though? How do you remember any boys who were interested in you other than Larry?
Not that I can remember. We just were all friends. We had dances in ninth grade to record players, and I don't remember doing much dancing. We all just kind of gathered around. Anyway, no, I didn't really have a boyfriend in ninth grade.
So at a dance like this at the age of 14, when the parents would like take you to the dance, which would be at school?
No, oddly enough, I don't remember an adult with us.
Really? Where was the dance? At school?
It was at school. It seems that I remember Rusty Vance, who was, I think, a year older, but he was in our grade, could drive or something. He surely couldn't by that time. But I remember going to the dance with, 2 or 3 couples.
Now, was the dance right after school, or was it in the evening?
No, it was in the evening.
Oh, okay.
And we girls wore long dresses.
So, but back then there was a lot of kind of playing at being grown up already in junior high school.
I guess so. Things always seem to just happen. In junior high school, at least in Mansfield, they had what they called the Subdepot Club. And it was a little club that the girls had formed. And they had a dance, and it was an old-fashioned dance. And they rented the LDS Institute Hall down by the campus university for the dance. And it was in the evening. I'm sure we had chaperones, don't remember them. And we all wore old-fashioned dresses. I can even see the dress I wore. It was a 2-piece long, real cute dress. I don't know where my aunt came up with that, but she always managed to come up with something. And they invited the boys to come. Now, Dad was a year older and in high school by that time, but he had been president of the student body at Mansfield the year before. So therefore the kids all knew him. Dad always maintained he crashed the party with a couple of his buddies. They knew about it and came. But apparently he was invited because I ran across a little newspaper article just a couple of months ago after he died that said that Edward Hawke was one of the guests. So apparently your father has a little faulty memory of that.
Or somebody was making up a story after the fact.
Yeah.
You never know.
You never know. You never know. But he was there.
You don't want to advertise crashing parties and make it sound like a good thing to do.
He was there with a couple of buddies, and lo and behold, he asked me to dance.
Oh, this was the first time you ever saw him?
The first time I ever saw him.
Had you heard of him before that?
So he asked me to dance.
Okay. Had you heard of him before that?
I don't think so. He came and invited all of us lowly ninth graders into Tucson High, one assembly. So he had been on the stage at Mansfield.
That was before this dance?
Well, that's what I don't remember, whether it was before or after. I think it was before. No, I think it was after that he came and invited us. Anyway, he was, now by this time, he was president of the 10th grade class at Tucson High.
So he invited you to dance?
Yes, he could really dance by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good dancer.
So were the other girls
No,
they say, do you know who that guy is?
No, I don't remember any. I don't remember any response about that occasion. And but Dad, oddly enough, who didn't remember things like that, to the time he died, remembered the dress I had on.
Really?
It was so cute.
Now, did he pluck at your heartstrings at that first
No.
meeting, or was this just?
Oh,
Another one of the many guys who
he
wanted to
was
dance
just
with you.
another boy.
Okay. So you had these dances. What other kind of social events did you have at Mansfield? Did you have
We had
socials?
we had assemblies. We had plays that the drama department put on. We had musicals that Miss Barrett, Howard Barrett was her name. She was a fabulous music teacher. She put on great stage shows for that age group. And Huberta Newland Fennessy was always in them. And
who later became a professional clown.
yeah, right. And a good friend.
Now, for those shows, would you have a part in them, or
No, I didn't.
you
But
mostly played the piano for them? Or?
But I played the piano for rehearsals and stuff like that. Yeah.
Now, academically, were you finding school very difficult or pretty easy?
No, school was always too easy. Not that I was an outstanding student. I was a normal, average student, but school was never very hard. They didn't push us like they seemed to later.
You could have been a great student if you tried harder.
Yeah, a good student.
What kinds of subjects did you take that maybe wouldn't be
Well,
in school today?
I took, well, I don't know about that. I took Spanish from Miss Pafouts. She was a stranger. She wore a wig. And I remember your dad, as a little tiny boy living on 10th Avenue, he and Danny Olney took a hose and turned it on and held it at an open window at Miss Faust's house down on 10th Avenue.
Oh, what a horrible thing to do.
Yes. It was interesting the things your father thought and his buddies did. Let's see, took Spanish, took English. Mrs. Upshaw was the English teacher. Mr. Alston was his, what was that subject? I don't know, like social studies. Mr. Allhands was my algebra teacher. He was a joke.
Did you take anything like accounting or bookkeeping or home economics or anything like that?
No home economics. I had taken that in 7th grade. No economics or nothing like that. PE, choir, music. No art. That was about it.
And you're living with Uncle Maynard and Aunt Anna. How did that go? I mean, was there a long... You had your own room, right?
What?
You had your own room.
Yeah.
And Aunt Anna made all the meals.
Oh, she was a good cook.
What did she make?
Well, I remember I had never seen or eaten or heard of a taco.
Oh, really?
And Aunt and Uncle Maynard always had tacos once a week, and they were so good. And she made frijoles. She was a good cook. She made pot roast, chicken. She was a good homemaker and a good cook. Something she had that surprised me for that era was that she had what we called the washwoman, Mrs. Nelson, and oftentimes her little girl would, Mrs. Nelson would come every week, once a week, and wash the clothes. And I look back on that, and that seems strange for that time, because that was Depression.
But Uncle Maynard, they had a phone in their house, right?
Yeah, we had a phone in our house.
That was pretty special. Was there a special reason for that?
Well, he was a railroad man. By that I mean, by that time, he had been with the railroad years and years, because he started very young. And he was an engineer, and like the pilot on the plane. And he had to be available when they called it the run, when his run would be scheduled. And they'd have to call him and tell him what time to be down at the station. And so he had to have be available. And that's
Now, didn't he have a kind of a special status?
People looked up to him, yeah. He was not at that particular time, I think, but I know at the end of his career he always looked back and said that he was very proud of the fact that when the President of the United States would come through in his special train, they'd always ask Uncle Maynard to be the engineer.
Yeah.
And that was very important to him.
Sure.
And he'd take a run from Tucson to Yuma and back, or from Tucson up to Steins Pass and back. He was very well respected.
So you had a phone. He had a car? Do you have a car?
Oh yes, a Pontiac
Because his son was a Pontiac
dealer
dealer in Washington, right?
in Washington, D.C.
Okay. So actually, for that time, they were doing quite well.
Oh yes, yes, very well.
Now the tacos that Anna made, describe the tacos, because there are 1,000 kinds of tacos. What were they like?
They were the hard shell tacos with the little ground meat patty on one side, and then folded it over and deep fried it. And then she always had chopped tomatoes, chopped onions, fresh onions soaked in vinegar. That was important. And shredded cheese, shredded lettuce, and hot sauce. And that was our taco.
Okay, but did she ever try to teach you how to cook, or were you ever curious enough to ask her?
Never even mentioned it. No, I was always asked. I was assigned, without even being told in any kind of way. That was just my job, to set the table before we ate, and then clean off the table and do the dishes, wash and dry the dishes afterwards. That was my job.
Okay. Did Anna sew?
No. She didn't bake either, but she sure could cook everything else.
So you got basically free room and board.
Oh, definitely.
From the time you were, your
Uh-huh.
mother died until you left them and got married, basically.
And interestingly enough, as I look back, I remember having a taffy pull party my first year living there, which surprises me when I look back. She must have cared a little bit, because she wouldn't have bothered having that. And how that happened, don't ask me, I don't remember. I just know that my friends that I had made at Mansfield that year came to the taffy pull party, and we just had a ball in the kitchen making taffy. And I guess she knew how to make it. I sure didn't. So that was nice. And interesting.
Now, Bobby was 6 when you went to live there. Was that a problem for him, all of a sudden having to share all the attention and everything with a...
Well, it was never stated. It was never stated by Bobby or anybody, but it obviously was, yes. He had been an only child, literally. His 2 brothers were already married and gone, didn't even live in Tucson. And well, I guess Clyde and Marge lived in Tucson. But my uncle obviously was really happy to have me there. And he made it very obvious that he was happy to have a little girl, and was always protective and always checking, treated me just as though I belonged in the house. And it was never stated, but it turned out that Bobby probably had a very hard time accepting me. He didn't like me. He hated having me in the house. He beat up on me if a 6-year-old can beat up on a 13-year-old girl. He'd take his, he'd kick me in my shins with his little Buster Brown shoes. No, he didn't like me. Bobby was a child that had a very untamed temper, and but he was very smart and very talented.
So at this time, how free were you to just to walk around Tucson? Would you ever be just going on the streets with,
oh no.
with girlfriends or anything, or going shopping by yourself? Or?
Nothing was ever said about it, but no, I never, we girls never went down and just walked around the streets, no.
So you were either in school or you were at home?
Yeah.
Or at a school event? That was
school or school events or home. Mm-hmm. And kids were free to come to the house to see me, which they did. I can remember Danny Olney and some kids coming one night early in the evening, and we all were on the front porch of the house, and my aunt made a great big jug of lemonade, and we all just kind of talked. And you know, when I look back, it was amazing how they took people into their home.
So it wasn't just you?
No, they had done this before with another brother's daughter.
But when you started living with them, it was on 6th Street. But then very soon they moved to...
Well, their son Everett was a very generous, quite well-to-do man, doing very well with his business. And he was always thinking of ways to do something for his folks. And being a Pontiac dealer, he was doing well, and he kept them in a new car quite often. But the story I heard, and I don't know who told it to me, he didn't like the idea that his folks were renting a house and didn't own their house. So he bought them a house.
And that address was?
Was 633 North First Avenue.
Describe the house.
2 blocks from Tucson High. Now, I don't think I'm be correct exactly. I think my folks, my aunt and uncle, bought the house on First Avenue. It was after they moved there and lived there a while, it bothered him that his folks still were paid monthly payments to buy the house. So he, lo and behold, pays off the house, the mortgage.
Okay.
And that's how they own the house.
So describe the house.
What was the size of it?
Describe the house.
Oh, it was a nice little home, pleasant looking. It had the old volcanic rock wall around the circumference of it. It was between 5th and 4th Street on First Avenue, and it was a home that had been added onto. It was 5 bedrooms and 1 bath, which was pretty normal for homes in those days.
Yeah.
But it had, the basic home had 1, 2, 3, had 3 bedrooms, the basic built home, and 1 bath and a hall that was square, and a kitchen, and a laundry room, a dining room, and a living room. So it was a pretty good sized house. But they had, by the time we moved into it, it had another bedroom built to the south of it, on the south side, next to the master bedroom. And another bedroom had been built to the back end of the house. So it ended up 5 bedrooms.
And as I recall, it had a front veranda, a porch.
Oh, it had a cover. It was the attached porch built part of the house,
Right.
and it had a swing.
Right, I remember that swing seat.
Yeah.
That swung, is that right?
Yeah, right. Which was fun. And then
and it was a raised porch. You
it
had
was
to walk up steps,
you had to walk
probably about 3 feet, I would say, above the ground. Yeah.
up to the front door, and then on the ground, on the north side of the porch. Oh, I love that area. There was a slow drip of the faucet, so it was usually always moist, and we had the most wonderful patch of violets. The fragrance of those violets was just wonderful. And then the porch actually had a great big hyacinth. Was it hyacinth? No, it was honeysuckle, honeysuckle vine. So the fragrance in that area was just wonderful. And it had about 3 steps up from the sidewalk to the ground that was surrounded by the volcanic rock. And then it had about 3 more steps up to the porch. It was a nice home.
Did Anna garden?
No,
Okay.
not that I ever saw. Neither did my uncle. We had a huge, beautiful fig tree in the backyard. Wonderful fig tree. Then my uncle built a great barbecue grill back there, of rock. I have a great picture of him in his apron grilling. He was the happiest, nicest man.
Well, he liked to cook too, right?
Oh, he liked to cook. He was a good cook. He lived alone until 95, cooking his own meals and cooking for his widow friends.
Right. So life for you at this point at Mansfeld was, school,
Normal.
after school activities, home, homework, piano practice, go to bed, eat, set the table, eat, do dishes, go to bed. And then
By the way, I sure was a late bloomer in that after having a triple date for some dance in high school my sophomore year, formal dance, I can remember the dress I wore. The next morning I awakened with a gorgeous case of chickenpox,
Oh my.
having exposed all 5 other kids.
Well, that's how it happens. Now, throughout your life with your mother, you were Seventh-day Adventist, which meant, going to church on Saturday and not being able to go to any weekend events that were on a Saturday.
Mickey Mouse Club.
Mickey Mouse Club or anything like that. You didn't celebrate Christmas at home or Easter or any of those things. Now all of a sudden, what's your church life like? Now
Well, my father's family grew up as Baptists, as children. Their basic roots were Baptist. By the time my aunt and uncle took me in, my aunt had become a Methodist. I don't know her spiritual journey at all before that. But she was a Methodist and a very faithful one. She went every Sunday to Sunday school. Now, the Methodist church by the university at 3rd Street and Park had a chapel called Hedrick Chapel, and that's where her Sunday school class met every Sunday. And she went every Sunday of the world. My uncle never went. I never saw him in church except for funerals and weddings. So I started going to the Methodist church with my aunt.
And did you join a youth group there?
What?
Did you join a youth group there?
Oh, yes.
Besides going to church, were
Oh,
there
yeah. They
church
had
activities?
it was a tremendously active, large Methodist church right across from the campus, and they had a fabulous youth group in high school and college. They called it Epworth League in high school and
Epworth League, yes.
Epworth League, and it just now escaped me what they called.
Was it the Methodist Youth Foundation, MYF?
That's what it became.
Yeah, I remember MYF. Yeah.
MYF. It was called Epworth League before that, and they had a wonderful college group, but I can't think of the name of it. Starts with a W. Anyway, so I became active in that. Played the piano for Sunday school. Made friends right away, and your dad was part of that group.
Okay, so that's the church he went to.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Your dad was part of that group.
So you started seeing him at church after he had asked you to dance.
Yeah, right. Well, I started seeing him at Mansfeld first, and realizing who he was. But he was one of your BMOCs,
Yeah,
big man on campus.
Right.
And
So you had seen him at Mansfield before he crashed the dance and asked you to dance.
no, it was after the dance I saw him at
So
Mansfield.
he kept coming back from Tucson High to Mansfield.
Well, to invite us into Tucson High just the one time.
Just the one time. So he wasn't hanging out at
Oh, no,
Mansfield.
no, no,
Okay.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
No, because he was president of the Tucson High School sophomore class, and had been president of Mansfield.
Right.
They invited him to invite us into school.
Right. But then you were also going to the Methodist Church at this time.
And I'm starting to see him there.
Hanging out with his
And the
buddies.
Methodist Church was very active in its youth group and its activities. On Sunday evening, they'd have treasure hunts. This was in the summer. They'd have treasure hunts and watermelon busts and hay rides, and they had a wonderful active group for the young people.
Okay. So that was kind of your Sunday. You go to church, and then there'd be some sort of youth group activity that afternoon or evening.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was allowed to go to that.
Okay. Now your uncle apparently was sort of aggressively non-religious, I guess, but he was a Mason. Right?
His religion, I guess, could be put like this. His religion was a Masonic lodge, because of course he had rituals, and it was based on God. And why he didn't go to church, I can't tell you. I don't know.
But did he have prejudices, or did Anna or Uncle have prejudices that you were exposed to?
My aunt never showed any prejudices by mouth or action. My uncle had a prejudice against Catholics.
Well, the Masons did.
I guess because of the Masons. And yet never opened his mouth once to his son Clyde, who became a Catholic, and his family, Clyde and Marge.
When you said he didn't open his mouth, what do you mean? He didn't.
He never said anything to them in a negative way, or criticized them, or said anything. Never said anything. In other words, he didn't show his prejudice to them. But he always sat with Father Janitas at the Tucson Toros, or I forget what they were called, Cowboys or Toros. And he loved baseball. My uncle loved baseball. So he'd go to the baseball games when he was in town. And he always met Father Janitas there, and they'd sit there with their cigars and watch the baseball game.
Well, that's typical of prejudice at that time. It was kind of prejudice and principle, but you always treat people with respect individually. That seems to be
Interesting.
characteristic of a lot of people
Yeah.
of that generation.
Yeah.
So now your Saturdays are free. So your Sundays are going to church and having fun with the youth group, and your Saturdays are now free because you're no longer, at the Seventh-day Adventist church. So are you starting to do things on Saturdays that are fun?
That was my day to help clean house.
Okay.
No, that was it, and that remained that way until I got married. I helped vacuum and dust and clean the house on Saturday.
That would take all day?
No, but really, I can't think of what we did.
Did you join any clubs at this point, like the Mickey Mouse Club or anything like
No,
this?
I was a little too old for that by that
There's
time.
nothing that you did
Now in high
that you
school,
hadn't been able to do before?
after I started dating Dad, we'd go on picnics out at Sabino Canyon. I forget who we would go with and why we would go with them.
Yeah. But did you join, for example, any service organizations?
No.
But you did later, didn't you? Rainbow Girls and all that sort of
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about the Rainbow Girls. When I became, right after I went to live with them, at the age of 13, you could apply to be a Rainbow Girl. And that was sponsored by the Eastern Stars and Masons. And of course, my aunt and uncle were very involved in the Masons and the Eastern.
Eastern Star was sort of the women's auxiliary of...
It was a women's organization connected with the Masons.
Okay.
and my aunt had been the head of that for one full year.
And each one of those has a youth organization.
Yeah, the DeMolays were the organization the Masons sponsored for the boys,
Mm-hmm.
and the Rainbow Girls were the Eastern Star group. So they put me in the Eastern Star.
The Rainbow Girls.
Rainbow Girls, and I was initiated into that. Enjoyed it tremendously. I became the worthy advisor at the age of 20.
What was the worthy advisor? The kind of the boss?
It was the head
Okay.
of Rainbow Girls.
So you went up the ladder from 13
Well,
to 20 in the organization.
There were chosen officers or positions that the worthy advisor, when she was elected, would appoint certain girls to be this and to be that. But there were four elected offices. And once you were elected to the first one, Hope, you usually went up the ladder.
Right.
So there was the first one you were elected to would be Hope, and then there was Charity, and then there was Associate Worthy Advisor and Worthy Advisor. So it was a very, very nice organization for girls. They put on fabulous dances, 4 dances a year. They were a service organization. They donated to Heart and different things that.
So would you go out and raise money, have fundraisers and things like that?
Well, a lot of the money we made off of our dances we used for service. The Eastern Stars sponsored it, and they had what they called a mother advisor, who would sit next to the worthy advisor at every meeting and help. And your term of office was only 4 months. But it was a fun 4 months. You enjoyed it.
But then you were gone.
Yeah, well.
And then did you go, supposedly at that point, you go into Eastern Star?
No, that wasn't automatic. And I was never interested in being an Eastern Star.
But that would have been the next thing up.
That would have been, yeah. That would have been the next thing I probably would have joined.
That's interesting that you had such a great time as a Rainbow Girl, but then Eastern Star didn't interest you.
Well, I was busy in college.
Okay.
I was busy in college and got married, and then my life just took a different.
Yeah.
And I never really was a joiner. Although in high school I was. I wanted to be part of everything that went on.
When was the first dance you went to with a live band? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was in high school.
Okay, we'll get to that.
We had a fabulous jazz swing band. They played all of the big band charts, and they were good.
But your Rainbow Girls dances, those are also record player dances?
No. They hired the best band in town. They were held at El Conquistador Hotel.
So it wasn't Tucson High. You were 13, 14 years old. Well, and you were in Tucson High then, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Rainbow. So you'd hired like the best dance band
Oh
in
yeah.
Tucson, right?
And I remember one dance. I got a newspaper article with a picture of us dancing. One dance was held at El Conquistador Hotel. I can remember one being held at the Pioneer Hotel. They were held at the best places in town. We had our Boots and Saddle dance, which was
Boots and Saddle.
Boots and Saddle dance.
Oh, Boots and Saddle.
In February. We had our Back to School dance in September. We had our fall formal, spring formal. We had some wonderful. Well, everybody wanted to go to the Rainbow Girl dances.
And would you go, like, you started going when you were 14? Now, would you go with a date?
Oh yeah, there were date dances.
Okay.
Now you didn't have a stag line.
Okay. So who'd you go to in the first one? Do you remember?
Well,
So you would have been 13.
probably the back to school dance of when I started my junior year in high school.
Oh, really? Because I thought you were in Rainbow Girls starting when you were 13 years old.
Yeah, but I probably didn't go to the dances right away.
Till later. Okay. And then you would have gone with Dad, probably.
Yeah. But Dad and I went to a lot of Rainbow Girl dances.
Really? Now, who were back then, junior, ninth grade, going to early Tucson High? Who were the big heartthrob singers, performers that you guys would dance to or listen to?
Oh, Sinatra.
Was he already big by then?
No, but toward the end of my high school years.
Yeah, but before then, do you remember?
Gee, I don't remember. Harry James was the first record I ever bought.
No. Well, Sinatra started with Harry James.
What?
Sinatra started with Harry James before he went to Dorsey.
The first record I ever bought at Recorder's Music Store was You Made Me Love You by Harry James Band. And the high school had a lot of dances. Dad said if we didn't have a dance to go to, it was strange. He said if somebody bought a new toothbrush, we had a dance.
Yeah, so I mean, one dance was over, and you were already thinking about the next dance, basically.
Well, and different organizations.
Right. Now, of course, with your mom, you used to go to the movies all the time.
Yeah.
Now, were you still going to movies at this point, or not so much?
I never went to the movies with girls and just hung out. It was always with a date. And that would have been after my, I probably went to the movies the first time with a boy as a sophomore in high school. I dated a couple of boys that sophomore year before I met Dad.
Do you remember the movie?
One was named Gerhardt. What was his first name? Don Gerhardt. He was a year ahead of me in school. He had a cute little convertible. It was old, but it was a real cute little convertible that he drove.
Do you remember the names of any of the movies that you went to back then?
Not that early.
How about the movie theaters? Was it just one or two or three major movie theaters?
We had the Rialto, the Opera House, the Fox, the Lyric, and then the one across from the Lyric. There was a Mexican theater.
Now, were you going out? Were you going out for meals at all at this time?
Oh no. What was that? No.
Well, you'd go out like for a date. You'd go to a fast food place.
We didn't consider that a restaurant.
Okay.
We went to the drive-in, and we got the standard fare was a hamburger and a frosted root beer.
Okay. What was the name of the drive-in? Remember?
The Red and Blue was one of them, and Reed and Bell was a big one. Reed and Bell.
Okay. Where was that?
I think it was on the corner. I'm not sure of Speedway and Stone. I think.
Now, of course, the University of Arizona was around. We were intermixing with the college kids at all? Did you ever see them?
No.
So there was no intermixing?
No. They had their own world and we had ours.
So when was the first time you ever went to a formal, sit-down, nice restaurant to eat? Do you remember?
Well, the first restaurant I ever ate in was El Charro, the Mexican restaurant. I forget, it was on Broadway, I think, down toward the old part of town.
But how old were you at the time, remember?
I don't remember.
Did you have been in high school?
Yeah, it was high school.
High school. So the first time you kind of ate in a restaurant was you were in high school?
In college, I ate in a couple of really nice restaurants.
What were some of the, you mentioned El Charro, what were some of the other restaurants around town that were popular? Do you remember?
Well, that's the only one I knew about. When I was a little girl, there was a restaurant on Congress Street, but I don't remember the name, because my next door neighbor's son worked there. I don't recall the name of it. And there was the Santa Rita Hotel, their dining room, and the Pioneer Hotel.
And was there a sense of danger in Tucson? Were people always telling you to be careful, or not go here, not go there, or don't be out at night? Or did you just feel like you were very safe?
No, I never felt unsafe.
People didn't talk as if it were unsafe that you know?
I never heard it.
Were there parts of town you didn't go to?
Yeah, I didn't go way far west. Nobody told me not to, but there didn't seem to be anything down there for me to go to.
Was there a Mexican part of town that
Yeah.
you were?
The south side of town, the southwest side of town.
Was that considered kind of a red zone? You just didn't go there? No reason to go?
No reason to go.
Where did Aunt Anna get her tortillas?
I don't know.
She didn't make them?
No, she never. I never saw her make. She made green corn tamales
Really? Oh.
and great enchiladas, great frijoles, great tacos. But I don't remember. Oh, she made chili relleno.
Wow.
See, my father's family, my English part of my genealogy, grew up in the south part of the state, Calabasas, which is now a ghost town. They went to school down there, Mexican school. They were railroad people, and they mostly lived in places down south. And she oftentimes, the Johnson kids would be the only gringo kids that in the school. So she learned early on, I guess, how to make Mexican food. She spoke Spanish, but only to selected Mexican women that she talked to on the phone to order her tamales or whatever.
So she'd order everything in Spanish on the
What?
phone. She'd order things in Spanish
Yeah,
on the phone.
Yeah,
She sounded like a complex woman.
she was. She was a very complex woman.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I wish I'd gotten to know her better.
She played, I didn't know until she was almost gone that she had played the organ as a young woman. I didn't know that she had been raised in the Baptist church. I didn't know that she had become a believer as a young child. I didn't know any of that. She never said anything about it.
Now, at this point, had you internalized your Christian faith, or were you just simply
I didn't know anything about it.
you were just going to church like a good girl, listening?
I just went to church, and I thank God for the mother I had for teaching me how to have a desire to meet with other people and worship God once a week. That was ingrained in me as an infant practically. My mother always worshipped with other people once a week, and I'm grateful for that. I eagerly went to church every Sunday morning. Got up and went to church. I wanted to go to church. Don't ask me why, but that was part of my being, and I loved the quietness of church. I loved the church music. I played the pump organ for my aunt's Sunday school class for years.
Well, I was going to ask you that. How musically did you participate starting at this point in time, 14, 15,
Always,
16?
always. I played the piano at Sunday school in the morning, and on Sunday evening, if we had any music, I played.
And were you going to rehearsals for this purpose, or were you just,
No.
would you just do it?
I just, whenever there was a need for a piano player, I was there.
And you just show up and just do it?
Just do it.
Sight reading or whatever? Or just,
whatever.
Yeah. But you at this point, you didn't have a personal relationship with Christ?
No. I'd never heard about it.
And there was no Bible study? You weren't studying the Bible?
Well, they teach us lessons in Sunday school.
Right, but it wasn't a real Bible study per se.
No. I didn't carry a Bible to church with me, or Mama did. Mama carried her Bible to church every week.
It's the one we have sitting right over there. Well, this has been a good session, long session. You need to get some rest. I need to get some rest.
I need to too.
We'll end it here and then start the next one, and it'll be all Dad all the time next time.
Good. He was
fun.
special.
Yeah, he was.
He was very special.
Love you.
I love you.